Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today. We're going to be tackling some pretty heavy material in this deep dive.
Yeah, this one is really intense.
So we're looking at chapter 7 from this book, and it tells Mela's story,
Right.
focusing on a really traumatic experience that she went through on April Fool's Day back in 1991.
And the chapter is written in third person. It's
Yeah.
almost like the author's trying to detach us a little bit from the story.
Yeah, it's interesting that they chose to write it that way.
Yeah.
It's like they're trying to go for this sense of objectivity, even though the story itself is very raw and personal.
Right.
So I guess what we're going to try to do today is to understand what Mela went through, all the different complexities of her situation, and maybe see some of the bigger picture issues that her story kind of highlights.
Yeah, and I think there are some twists and turns here that people will find pretty shocking.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So this is a story about a young girl named Mela. She's 14 years old.
Okay.
Fit, athletic kid, long distance runner, actually. And that detail about her athleticism, it actually becomes really important later on.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So picture this. It's April Fool's Day, 1991, and Mela is rushing home, heart pounding.
Okay.
She feels like someone is following her.
Oh, God.
Now, this is the really unsettling part. She'd felt this fear before.
Oh, wow.
It wasn't a new experience for her.
Can you imagine, like, what must have been going through her mind? Should she, like, shout for help, stay silent, find someone?
It's heartbreaking, especially when you consider the societal pressures that girls face, even at that age. You know, the whole be seen and not heard thing
Oh, yeah.
that can really prevent women, especially young women, from speaking up about their fears.
Right, absolutely. And wait till you hear who is following her. It's someone that she considered a friend, someone that she'd confided in about a previous relationship. And this friend, using Mela's trust, actually encouraged her to report that previous incident to the authorities.
Talk about a betrayal. And
Yeah.
that betrayal, it kind of becomes even more complex when you understand the context of that earlier relationship. This had been Mela's first love, but it was ending.
Right.
The boy was getting back together with a previous girlfriend.
Oh.
So here's Mela, heartbroken,
Yeah.
clinging to this relationship,
Yeah.
dealing with all the confusion and hurt that comes with that.
Right. Of course.
Yeah, it's like this so-called friend saw an opportunity to manipulate the situation.
Yeah.
You know, taking advantage of Mela's innocence and her youth.
Yeah.
And tragically, this wasn't Mela's first experience with sexual abuse.
Right.
There had been other incidents,
Wow.
but her attempts to get help were either ignored or dismissed.
Oh my gosh, it's awful.
And the manipulation here is just insidious. The book even mentions the friend using phrases like, "I thought you were a big girl,"
Oh, wow.
to kind of pressure and control Mela.
Hmm.
And the truly awful irony of all of this is that by reporting the previous incident, Mela unknowingly protected her abuser from potential statutory rape charges.
Oh my gosh,
It's awful.
that's really heavy.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go back to that April Fool's Day. The chapter describes the seemingly casual walk home, a quick detour to pick up a car that never shows up,
Right.
and then a strange invitation to see a house under construction.
And that, my friend, is where things take a very dark turn.
Okay.
Imagine a dark, empty house, a menacing dog.
Oh gosh.
And what starts as attempted intimacy quickly escalates into a violent assault.
Wow.
Mela is overpowered, threatened with a knife.
Gosh.
And even though she hears voices outside, the fear paralyzes her.
Mm.
She eventually manages to escape, runs home, and then comes the official report and that invasive rape kit examination.
Right.
I mean, this chapter doesn't hold back on the emotional toll that this all took on Mela. The grief, the fact that she breaks down during the police interview, and even how she avoids eye contact with her attacker.
Gosh.
It's brutal.
It's really rough. And then the story shifts to this public scrutiny and family fallout that followed. Mela's courage to speak out is met with some devastating consequences. Media coverage family members who are more worried about their reputation than her well-being. Even condemnation from her church.
Wow.
Her own parents dismiss her experience.
It's just awful.
Think about how isolating that must have felt.
Yeah, absolutely.
Friends, siblings, family, everyone she should have been able to rely on, they all pull away.
Right.
But even with all of this, Mela shows this incredible resilience.
Yeah.
She seeks refuge in a stricter environment with her father, hoping to find the support that she so desperately needs.
And it's that decision, while understandable, that leads to even more heartache.
Oh.
Moving means less time with her siblings, just adding to the sense of loss and isolation that she was already feeling.
It's like it really drives home how trauma can have this ripple effect impacting not just the person who experienced it, but also their relationships and their support systems. You know, Mela is clearly a victim of her circumstances, shaped by early trauma. the pressures of society, and the lack of support from those she should have been able to trust.
You're right. Her story really shines a light on the devastating and lasting impact of victim blaming and how those negative opinions can become internalized.
Yeah, it's a vicious cycle that can be so hard to break free from.
Absolutely. It really is. And it's here that we need to kind of connect the dots, and really see how these factors all played a role in Mela's experience. It really exposes the sinister nature of child sexual abuse, the manipulative tactics that abusers use, and above all, the critical importance of believing survivors.
Yeah, one of the things that really struck me about Mela's story, and I'm sure you felt it too, listener, was just her incredible strength, her resilience.
Absolutely.
Despite this horrific experience, she found a way to speak her truth and begin to heal.
It's like this chapter is holding up a mirror to society.
Yeah.
And forcing us to look at some uncomfortable truths about how we respond to these situations. The victim blaming, the pressure to stay silent, the systemic failures that leave survivors feeling isolated and unsupported.
It really makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like, how can we do better? How can we create environments where survivors feel safe coming forward, where they know they'll be heard and believed?
It's a call to action, absolutely. Mela's story highlights just how urgent this need for change is. We need to start challenging the beliefs and attitudes that perpetuate victim blaming. We need to educate ourselves and others about the dynamics of abuse, the manipulative tactics used by perpetrators, and we need to push for systemic change to ensure that survivors have access to the resources and support they need to heal and rebuild their lives.
But what's interesting is that even in the midst of her own pain, Mela was still worried about the safety of others.
Oh, yeah.
You remember how she mentioned being afraid to walk home alone at night?
Yeah.
It shows a remarkable amount of empathy and compassion, even when she was the one being victimized.
That's such a great point. It speaks volumes about the human spirit, about the inherent goodness and resilience that can persist even in the face of such unimaginable trauma. Survivors aren't defined by their experiences. They're defined by their strength, their courage, and their capacity for love and compassion.
Exactly. And it highlights how important it is that we recognize and respect their agency.
Hmm.
Mela was making choices throughout her ordeal, difficult choices in impossible circumstances. She sought help, she spoke her truth, she fought for her healing.
Her story is a powerful reminder that even when things seem darkest, hope and healing are still possible.
And that we all have a role to play in creating a world where survivors are supported, believed, and empowered to thrive.
It really does make you think about, how each of us can make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Mela's story really brings home a few key things for us. One of the biggest takeaways for me, and I'm hoping for you listening too, is just how crucial it is to believe survivors.
Right.
It's tragic how often victims of abuse are met with doubt, skepticism, even outright denial.
Yeah.
And that can be incredibly damaging, leading to feelings of isolation, shame, and self-blame.
Absolutely. It's like
No.
their trauma is compounded by the very people they should be able to turn to for support. And Mela's experience at the police station where her forced smile was misconstrued as a lie.
Right.
It's such a poignant example of that.
Yeah.
It just underscores the need for trauma-informed responses,
Yeah.
Recognizing that survivors might express their experiences in ways that we don't expect.
We need to create spaces where survivors feel safe to share their stories without fear of judgment or disbelief.
And that goes beyond individual interactions. We need systemic change to ensure that institutions, like law enforcement and the justice system, are equipped to handle these cases with sensitivity and understanding.
Absolutely. Another key takeaway for me is how trauma can have such a lasting impact.
Yes.
Mela's story shows us how early experiences of abuse can shape a person's life, affecting their relationships, their self-esteem, their overall well-being.
It's a powerful reminder that healing from trauma is a journey, not a destination. It takes time, support, and often professional help to process these experiences and move forward in a healthy way.
And it's so important to remember that healing is possible.
Right.
Despite the incredible pain and hardship she endured, Mela found ways to cope, to build resilience, and ultimately to reclaim her life.
Yeah.
Her story is a testament to the strength of the human spirit.
It really is. And Mela's story also challenges us to look at some uncomfortable truths about our communities and society as a whole.
Right.
We see how societal pressures, especially those that silence women and girls, contribute to a culture where abuse can thrive.
We need to have honest conversations about these issues, challenge harmful stereotypes, and create environments where everyone feels safe and supported to speak up about abuse.
I couldn't agree more. Mela's story is a call to action for all of us.
Yes.
We need to be more than just bystanders. We need to be active advocates for change, working towards a world where abuse isn't tolerated and survivors are met with compassion, belief, and support.
Listener, we've covered a lot in this deep dive. We've explored Mela's story, the complexities of her situation, and the bigger issues it all raises. But before we go, I want to leave you with one last thought. What if each of us took some time to reflect on our own experiences, our relationships, our communities? How can we be a part of positive change? How can we create a world where stories like Mela's become less common, where survivors feel empowered to share their truth, and where healing and justice are possible?
It's a powerful question to think about, a reminder that we all have a role to play in creating a safer, more just world for everyone.